focus on general food is probably a better focus than cannabis, all right? Because there's such a dearth of money now in cannabis. It's unbelievably crushing. Only the most premium companies with really good upside are getting any money at all. And the other thing that's important is where are they getting your money at what rate? You know, like when we're investing in our fund right now, we're getting into companies that are leaders in the space. These are companies with an average of 30 to 40 million in sales right now, that some of them close to EBITDA positive, that we're coming in at levels of 1.5 to 2 times revenues, which is it's almost like not a steal, but it's, you know, we're dictating the terms. A typical leader in CPG, consumer packaged goods, is at 10 to 12 times revenues. So it just gives you an idea of how depressed the valuations are of the industry in cannabis.
And I'm showing up as an investor for the last 30 years plus, and also consulting for as many years, coaching businesses for the last 15 plus years. And I started the space that we call peers on demand, vertical markets. This one is geared for association and cannabis executives. But certainly it's not limited to that. My invitation is that you join our community at peersondemand.com and consider joining any of our events that are free. And of course, this is a big idea, is to be able to bring our peers that we've connected with. And we started this last year to be able to connect some of the peers that had some great ideas. And top of mind was cybersecurity, which is a multi-trillion-dollar space. And so we created a cyber academy for training. We also focused in cybersecurity for vertical markets. But beyond that, some of our peers also provided different deliverables. Consulting Ace provides government grants if you qualify, and commercial incentives. If you qualify, you can get money, and I think it's without attachment too. So it's really quite interesting. I think it's a carryover from when we had the pandemic, when the government was giving away money. Also, too, we have Entrepreneurs University, small, medium, and large size companies for training. VetOps, we're working with them for cybersecurity regulations, and also working with their vertical market, which is a healthcare space, about 1,000 hospitals, small hospitals. Some AI companies, Echo.ai, Savvy.ai. Continuum Foundation is virtual in space with NFTs and, of course, blockchain, and, of course, cryptocurrency, which has gotten to be bigger this year. We'll see how that pans out. We're also focused with Rural World in the Southeast Asia, and also in some philanthropic areas with foundations, nonprofit foundations, as well as healthcare spaces. That's really accumulated quite a bit of space. So my invitation is that you might consider joining our CoVentures Mastermind session that we have every week and participate. And I'll put it in the chat box so that you can join. So that's my big idea, is to be able to bring together the peers that we have great ideas, be able to introduce them to others that can help them expand and fund, either with time or talent or money or resources. So, but cannabis is kind of quiet. But let's hear from somebody that does know. That is Bill Fuchs. He's grown his business 880% since, I think you said 2020, Bill, but that's a short amount of time. And
No, January 23.
And you've got
very impressive.
Congratulations. Yeah. Well, maybe say more. What does this year look like for you, Bill, and your direction and the opportunity, maybe the challenges that you're facing? Bill Fuchs.
Sure. So we have 4 revenue streams, online to all 50 states. Before we jump into that, we have the highest testing standard in the nation. Every one of our cannabis products, every batch, every SKU, every product from our manufacturers has a full, complete panel COA from a legitimate laboratory. And what that means as a consumer is you get a more consistent experience, and you know that it's been tested for pesticides, heavy metals, mycotoxins, microbials, and solvents, and other contaminants, which means it's a much safer product because the government only requires potency tests. Our 4 revenue streams, we do online sales in all 50 states. We have an in-store dispensary we carved out of our office in Waukesha, Wisconsin, looking to move that to higher demographics. We've also got 4 automated kiosks. We were the second company to be added to DoorDash. And right now we're in that gazelle phase of growth where we're always needing more inventory and cash flow and playing, the juggling game. So we're looking for some refi on that right now, assembling a board of advisors, and because we're trying to get the best revenue streams, keep enough baskets so all the eggs aren't in one basket, but diversify. The only reason we fixed all the tech stuff got resolved. We resolved that with the manufacturers. We had some challenges with POS. We got that resolved. But the reason we're not expanding in the kiosks until they come out with the 2025 farm bill, we're not willing to risk it. Yeah, it's not worth putting the machines out there running through on cannabis, especially with, I'm not sure which way the wind's blowing with our political things. I mean, there's some very positive things. We're all over the Safe Cannabinoid Act. If they would do that, that would be great. In fact, we wouldn't have to change any of our 1,500 SKUs. Would be good to go.
Let's hear from Richard Nelson. He has put together an alternative solar technology. I think you mentioned that it provides 10x energy. Richard, maybe you could say a little bit better. You've been working in China, you mentioned. What's your focus this coming year for your direction in your business, the opportunity and the challenge? Richard?
Well, there is, of course, a strong connection to growing any kind of plant, including cannabis. So that's one of the reasons I'm here, because if anyone wants to explore that, of course, I'm very, very interested. But our focus is on food, right? Our focus is on food abundance. So what we have now is a small unit. It's a pod, we call it. It's kind of like a pyramidic structure, tent-like actually, that you can put up in your backyard, and you can grow more food than a family can eat, really. So we have estimated typically $20,000 in value of food, and if you push it, you probably grow 30. Now, I don't know how much the value of the
Richard, what's
cannabis.
your website? What's your URL for any of
I
this?
put it in the chat
Okay,
for
sorry,
everyone,
thank you.
just to be, make it easier. PYRAPOD, pyrapod.com. And Pyrapod is the product. The technology is called Solar Roof. That's my other brand, and you can Google Solar Roof and you'll find quite a bit. That's SOLAROOF. So it's Solar Roof, 1R. Yeah. The technology is basically an architecture and a climate control process. It can be applied to all kinds of buildings, but especially since the building is transparent, in general, it doesn't have to be transparent, but of course, that's where we get all the benefits if it is transparent. We're letting light into the building. We're then transforming that energy. And what we do is, of course, we produce biomass. Okay, if we want to put it that way, plants. We produce plant biomass. We can also produce algae biomass. So we're using the photosynthetic pathway for energy. We don't need batteries because we produce carbohydrates. And that's food, that's energy. And when you've got a biomass, you can put what is not food. Let's say you're growing a food product. So yes, you're harvesting, the fruit. You put the plant into the biodigester, anaerobic, and you release the carbohydrate in the form of methane, biomethane. So you go from a
Richard,
carbohydrate.
let's focus on the business part, the technical part. You're a genius at that. And I'm looking at your website. It looks like you've got 4 pods already. Are you in production? Have you sold any pods?
We're in production. Yes, we're not selling right now. What we're doing is we're placing the pods with people who will help us get through a proof of concept stage, which means we want the data primarily, right? And the data is open source. My tech is open source. So this data will be online. For example, we have a team in Chicago working with the University of Illinois, got a $21,000 grant recently, and the product only cost $12,000. So, they're in good shape there. They're moving forward. They're going to put this project up at one of the college. There's 5 community colleges in Chicago network, community college network. So that's where we're going at a high school that's on one of the campuses of the college, community college. So that's a wonderful example. We've got a team. So it's a public-private partnership. And what we want is evaluation of the Pyropod product. What will it yield? What is its energy performance? Open data, open source technology, so that everyone can know what we can do with the solar roof invention, which basically brings energy to zero. Okay, so, and of course we're using sunlight, natural, free sunlight. And the quantum of sunlight we get, if you evaluate it in terms of what's that worth in terms of lamp energy, well, anyone that's trying to produce cannabis knows that's a huge number. That's a big energy saving. So the problem usually with greenhouses is you cannot control the climate, and you do have to spend a lot on your energy for cooling and for heating. So what we've done, as I mentioned, brought that from 50% to 5% or even less. And even that's not a true statement, because yes, that is the parasitic cost, because we've got electric pumps and fans that operate, but we're actually producing more energy from our biodigester than what we're going to consume for our operational requirement. So when you look at it, truthfully, really, right, we're producing a biomass, which is food or fiber or fuel crops. We can grow hemp as well for fiber. It's a wonderful crop. So again, related to cannabis, really. And we can do biotech as well. So all kinds of other kinds of crops.
Yeah,
And
Richard, let me steer you back to business. What's the challenge that you're facing? What is the challenge in your business?
Well, we do need the early adopters who are the pioneers of the technology. And because I made the tech open source, I'm not getting the normal response, because, some venture capital person might come along and say, Richard, I'll make you a lot of money, come into my, we'll commercialize this. But they're going to ask for a monopoly, because that's what business people want. They want a monopoly. So I'm replying to that and saying, well, this is for everyone. So do you want to use it and make a lot of money, but also share what you're learning with the world?
That's hypothetical and altruistic, but it's
No,
not going to bring you business.
No, it's not hypothetical. No, we're doing it. So we're doing it in China, first of all, because, they don't mind the open source environment that much. The capitalists are puzzled. They're puzzled by open source. But as you know, even the very large capitalists are leaning into open source. What does open source really mean? Well, it is the future. I do believe it's Web3. It is the future. And so we're all learning, right, how to do business in an open source world. So
let's find out. Let's see if we can open it up and people can ask you questions.
Any capitalist that wants to help me commercialize this product in a big way, sure, jump right in and we can build. And what could
we got
you
a few of those.
What would I pitch? I would say come up with 50K, choose 2 sites, because this $25,000 budget per site. That's what the Chicago team is doing, and there are other teams. So we've got a team in China for sure. That's going big. We've got a production and a team in Mexico. That's going. They're building. Chicago is moving. Canada, we've got a couple of sites already funded, moving forward. And in Europe, we're looking at Eastern Europe. We got a team in Serbia, most likely starting, and of course in Norway, where we have the largest adoption of solar roof and the most experience with solar roof, because I lived in Norway in the 2010s.
Well, let's open it up, Richard. There's some people who'd love to be able to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Anybody have a question, comment, thought, feedback, or even money for Richard? Anybody?
Yeah, I'd like to add a little bit of a comment. I mean, I was like William, I was in venture capital with Trust Capital. And one of the things, Richard, you really got to start thinking about is what synergies you might have with other portfolio companies that have already received funding. So you might find a better combination that way than just saying, I need money. So because they might have different technologies and things, but at least you'll find an investment group that aligns with your quest.
Well, I'll sort of dovetail on that one, and that
Mhm.
50,000 may be too small to even get somebody's attention unless it's on a smaller scale. You're almost in the individual friends and family.
Mhm.
That's not a bad thing. But what you might, and Steve's idea is you may be able to tag along, maybe even with one of the LED grow light companies, because right now, unfortunately, that market has commoditized. The price of flower is so low compared to what it was in 2020 that you're not going to clients with deep pockets. On a positive note, though, I do have some contacts at the University of Wisconsin greenhouse, and they have done with some LED grow lighting manufacturers for us years ago. In fact, it was during the pandemic. We had it set up just before the pandemic, so it's something that could be of interest. Again, they may be interested in using it in their greenhouse because they have a greenhouse. I believe it's in one of the campus dorms above. There's a huge greenhouse they use for research and design.
Well, that's all very useful, and believe me, if someone out there is, ready, even as a donor, even as a philanthropist, if you've made a lot of money and you'd like to do something, like for example, we want to bring down the cost of food, right? And as I mentioned, I'm focused on food, although you could grow cannabis in one of our small backyard units. And for example, in Ontario alone, or all in Canada, we're legal to grow our own cannabis. We can grow 4 plants recreationally, and we can grow 6 plants for medical license, for anyone that has a medical prescription. Well, 6 plants and 4 plants is actually quite a lot of plants, actually. And you can also grow for one other person. So in a small fire pod, you could grow a very, very valuable crop. And what we could demonstrate is that it can be organic, because what we do is aquaponics. We grow fish and we grow plants. So I don't care if you're growing food or you're growing cannabis. You want to grow organically. You want to grow with natural sunlight. You'll get excellent bloom. You'll get excellent biome, all the flavonoids, everything in the plant is going to be extremely high value, as compared to what you're getting in a hydroponic system with synthetic nutrients and synthetic light. Okay, everyone says, "Oh, it's the same. It's the same." No, it's not. It's not the same. So,
Yeah, Richard, let me just pause there. It just gives me the impression, and I don't know if anybody else can agree, that you're very good as the technical part, but less than good in the business part.
oh, I'd
Number
agree.
one, having a focus that's particularly specific, generating revenue, and as Bill says, 50,000 is not going to get your attention. Now, 5 million will get your attention. Then they'll find out. I think you, instead of looking for some distributors, you might look for somebody that could bring business sense to your business, and of course the marketing, and drive that
Rocky,
business, Richard.
and all the team on the call here, I'm so happy to be with you. I can tell you're all professionals. You're all at the top of your game. I am 73. I have been doing this for over 40 years. I have been in several countries. I've been in Singapore. I've been in South Korea. We have project there. We've had projects. What I am facing is that this world does not want to focus on innovation. We have a food system that is killing us.
Bring in Steve Peterson, who is thinking both short-term and long-term. He has citizen area focused on blockchain. Steve, I wonder if you might step in and share more about your focus for this year, the direction, short-term and long-term, and what's the opportunity and the challenge that you're facing. Steve Peterson.
Well, hi everybody. I mean, stepping back a little bit, and I'd love to get the group's thoughts on a couple of things. One is, William talked earlier today about the green market report, which hopefully we are at bottom, because when you see companies like State House hitting bankruptcy with 70 million in revenues but couldn't service their debt, that's a problem. And so in my mind, I guess, is there and I see it all over the place. The cannabis companies are continue to struggle, and they're paralyzed by regulations. So my question is this: when you look at emerging trends in 2025, one of the things I'm starting to see is a lot of seed genetic companies coming into the U.S. from overseas, okay, and licensing their seeds. And why? I think it's because the evolution of the home grow market is starting to pick up, okay, because people don't want to pay the high prices in what they find in the stores. The second trend that I keep asking myself is, why aren't more people involved with industrial hemp? I mean, it seems like the path forward in that vertical seems to have less obstacles in terms of manufacturing. So I'd love to just throw those topics out there and get everybody's feedback.
Well, those are very good questions. Well, all right, let's open it up, because I think if Richard focused on industrial hemp specifically, I think that might be where the money is. Anybody have some comments, thoughts, feedback, or answers to Steve's questions?
Industrial hemp to me is sort of like where the entire green building program was in the early to mid 80s, where it's a good idea. However, it's not feasible yet because of the cost of transportation and the lack of processing facilities and materials that's getting incorporated. I think we're probably going to be a couple of years off on that. There is use now, and there are places doing concrete and plywood and all particle board and such, but it's going to be a while before it's mainstream, in my
Hold
opinion.
on a second.
And I don't think growing
You know,
industrial hemp in a greenhouse is ever going to pay off.
Right, I agree. Yeah,
It's you got to have acres and
I'd
mass
like to jump
production.
in on that one about growing it in a greenhouse. Okay. Because what we can do is grow it in a closed environment control system, which means we can put the CO2 up to 2,000 parts per million inside. And we don't lose that CO2 because we don't ventilate. We cool the skin of the building. We cool with our liquid bubble insulation as well. So we can grow at a very high rate. I can tell you the uptake of CO2 for carbon credits is at least 10 times. Again, we're talking 10 times increases, right? 10 times in savings, but 10 times in increase of carbon uptake because of this kind of growing system. And so the comparison is 10 times compared to the best forestry, okay? So growing hemp in this kind of environment clocks in at the speed of uptake of a forest at its maturity, at the point which it hits its peak uptake of CO2, 10 times. So yes, that is key. And
But my point is that if you're growing a product that requires a height of 10 to 15 feet,
yep,
and is selling for, and this is not a real number, but let's say $1 a ton, versus if you're growing another product that has flowers that can be used, and if you get high quality, decent flowers with proper testing, you can still get a decent price. I'm just suggesting that the industrial hemp portion is not worth it from a grower standpoint to grow indoors. That's all. I'm not saying the whole cannabis. You should be growing flower. You should be growing premium.
Well, that's the question about what Steve was saying. That's where I'm interested. And as I was saying, it's hard to grow your cannabis in your basement. It's not a good idea to have that humidity in your house. It's not worked out how people can grow their own cannabis. But what we can do is have a product in the backyard that is very specialized and grows excellent quality cannabis, and everyone can be online. And this can be, and talking about how it's high tech, yes, we can connect it to an app with AI helping the customer to grow their own cannabis. And they can connect with a network of people that are taking up seed, that are taking, varieties that they want to try out. So this becomes more and more of a knowledge-based hobby. And people love hobbies. Gardening is one of the biggest hobbies. So why not a product like Pyropod to grow in the backyard? And if someone in the business wants to accelerate that adoption of that product, then they can accelerate the success. And that means almost a zero cost cannabis, by the way.
Probably get the answer. The person that could answer that is Bill Marcus. He's comes from he's created a private equity fund, and he's focused in the cannabis area. So, Bill, I wonder if you might address your focus this year, 2025. I think the money comes first before knowledge and even before food. So I think you're in a great position for that. What's the direction you're focused, Bill? What's the opportunities that you see? What's the challenges, Bill Marcus?
Well, just let me comment on while Richard was making his points, couple of things. Bill brought up some good points about the scale and the price, right? First of all, we've seen in terms of growing your own cannabis at home or growing it in self-regulated pods. I've seen since I entered the business in 2016, I've seen two or three very well-funded um, uh, potential people with the same idea as you, Richard, go out of business, and because the industry turned around. Excuse me. Because of the problems with the industry, all right? So maybe the timing is right, and your focus on I would say that your focus on general food is probably a better focus than cannabis, all right? Because there's such a dearth of money now in cannabis. It's unbelievably crushing. Only the most premium companies with really good upside are getting any money at all. And the other thing that's important is where are they getting your money at what rate? Like when we're investing in our fund right now, we're getting into companies that are leaders in the space. These are companies with an average of 30 to 40 million in sales right now, that some of them close to EBITDA positive, that we're coming in at levels of 1.5 to 2 times revenues, which is it's almost like not a steal, but we're dictating the terms. A typical leader in CPG, consumer packaged goods, is at 10 to 12 times revenues. So it just gives you an idea of how depressed the valuations are of the industry in cannabis. Uh, and Bill, you probably understand that as very well. And to Bill Fuchs' point, you know, the companies that we have a couple of brands. We have 15 investments, and a couple of them are brands in the gummy space, and they benefit as the price of THC drops or hemp-derived THC drops, Delta 9, because they're just buying it from the growers, right? So the collapse in pricing is favorable to them. But what I will tell you is there is an explosion of D9 hemp-derived cannabis in the industry, and it's powering a lot of brands forward because it makes the product sellable in all 50 states, right? And so the flip side, which I think Bill's right about, is as soon as we get positive regulation where descheduling happens in the THC side of the plant, prices, everyone's going to go right back to the more efficient growth, basically 10 to 20 times more powerful THC side, and everyone's going to walk away from the hemp side on Delta 9, right? Everyone's going to go back to that side of the industry. So, it's a risky bet to really focus on hemp and cannabis. Industrial hemp is a whole nother argument that you brought up some points. I think, Rocky, in terms of industrial competitors, costs, and so forth, there's a lot of substitutes, and it's early in the game. It's going to be a great industry, the industrial hemp industry, but I think, as you said, Steve, too, we're early on that. So, it's tough getting speculative early investor dollars in that side of it. So where are we deploying, and where do we see the future in hemp, not hemp, in cannabis? For us, it's the typical picks and shovels side of the business, right? We're invested, for example, in Can, right? One of the leading beverage companies. But to diversify our investment in Can, there's probably 60 beverage companies across the United States, all north of 2 million in sales. Several of them are north of 10 million in sales. There's a company called Abstracts, because you have to put the terpenes and flavoring back into the drink. So we invested in Abstracts, which flavors 80% of the entire revenue model, all the revenue of all those 60 brands, right? So that's an example of us getting 8 cents out of every 10 cents sold in beverages by going into one investment, which is Abstracts. And so that's how we think about private equity in the business, and how do we invest in the part of the industry, for example, in the data part of the industry, headset, and so on. there's three major companies. So we're going to merge hopefully one or two of them together, and therefore we'll own 6 out of every 10 cents in the data part of the industry, which is a very dependable cash flow, right? And so we're more avoiding cultivation, retail, and distribution because they're at the end of the day single-digit returns, and we'd rather help merge those industries, those players together, which we will do. Um, but to your point, Bill, there's in single state operators, there's a lot of value to be found, right? And like, what you're doing, et cetera, and taking your model that's working into other states carefully, especially at these depressed levels, makes some sense, right? So if I was in the debt side of the business, I think the debt side of the business is actually very good. Getting a 15 to 18% return on your money by doing debt with a good operator like Ethereal is a good value proposition, even if you got north of 10%, right? Because of the upside that's involved and the fact that it's securitized by real assets. But it's just not the area we're in. So, we're really looking at brands, technology. Two of the companies we're raising capital for right now, sub raises, co-investments, are Trees, which is all of your SaaS and software at the cash register, right? The typical non-commoditized income flows of the industry as all as they expand to other states, and there's 60 cents out of every dollar in California in terms of the cash register. So it's really for us. We're looking at in our successful first portfolio. Now we're building our second successful portfolio. It's very much related to technology, software, sometimes hardware, and brands. Right? Which brands are the brands that are really going to go global, etc. We're not looking at Europe yet. I just came back from Europe this week. Germany is really the leader there, and they're a very fractured, splintered industry at this stage, with very limited consumption quotas on people. So it's all in the United States, and it's the industry continues to grow even in its depressed levels at 10% in terms of overall revenues every year annually, and maybe 18% globally. It's on its way to being a $400 billion industry by 2030, and we do think there'll be relief in regulation. We do think that it will be descheduled. I mean, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, you can't argue with the fact that 80% of the population wants it. So who's gonna at the end of the day take that golden ring, right? That's politically agnostic. Right now with Trump coming in and all the priorities he's got, it's understandable why it's not on the front burner. But the banking bill and other regulations to move the industry forward makes great sense. It's just taking time. And while it's taking time, unfortunately, a lot of operators are going out of business, which is a sad fact, but it's something we have to deal with in reality. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but we are very positive on this industry, even though you could make the argument that it's right on its lows right now.
I think Bill has a really good point where, Richard, if you can focus on traditional fruit, vegetables in a greenhouse now, get your concept up and running, and position yourself for whenever the feds legalize, then you can make hay. Until then, honestly, I like the pick and axe thing. And it's a good, I mean, you have a pick, you're not going out and buying a mine, but it's right now the people that are doing the mining don't have the money either. And the price is commoditized so badly. If you can even get in with the universities and hit tomatoes, strawberries, whatever, get your proof of concept done that way, that also has the emotional tug that you can use on the food chain being screwed up. And I understand what you're saying with the way it is with non-organics, etc. But I think Bill's right. I think that's a much easier play, and you won't be as frustrated.
To your point, Bill, we did some raises before. I'm licensed at Young America Capital. I'm out of there now, but we had very successful raises last year in the food industry to hydroponic grows and other solutions to what you're trying to do that are geographically portable, right? So like the ones that were in Florida were all the if you can move to where the growing is done, or in your case, having a unit that you could own. And it's transportation is probably the biggest cost in food. And so you're eliminating that by having units that can be geographically located where the food's grown and used, right? So you think
Right.
about that point.
That is definite. That's what we're doing. The idea is localized because it doesn't matter what the climate is. We're comfortable. We can grow, intensively anywhere close to the customer, and with the highest quality. And by the way, too, this is not like any other previous system. So don't associate what I'm doing with containerized growing or different things you've heard about. I know the industry quite well in the food sector, the vertical farmers, and the factory farming ideas. We presented to Walmart and some others too. To the fresh food leader in wherever it is
Join
there.
us in a month. We do this on a monthly basis, but you don't have to wait a month. We've got a session tomorrow with nonprofits, and every work day of the week, we have a session at 12 p.m. Eastern. So you can join us before then. And of course, get known and get an opportunity to join our collaborative ventures mastermind.